Hey guys, change it up with my video today, as you can tell from the title. Since this pandemic has started, there really hasn't been a whole lot you can do, and quite frankly, I kind of get sick of playing video games once in a while. And as much as I love it, I gotta change it up once in a while, and I like to read books and comics sometimes. And I recently read through some books, and I thought I'd review them. So what am I reviewing today? Well, as you could have told from the title, obviously, I'm reviewing the Callista Trilogy. 3 Star Wars novels. Now, just to give you guys some reference, the Callista Trilogy is not really a trilogy in the sense that like the Thrawn Trilogy or the Jedi Academy Trilogy is. All they are 3 individual novels: Children of the Jedi, Darksaber, and Planet Twilight. They were individually written, but they're considered a trilogy because they have one character that arches over all of them, named Callista. These books were written in the mid to late 90s, so they present some things into the Star Wars continuity that doesn't really line up once the prequels came out, but they were retconned. So the first novel, Children of the Jedi, was written by Barbara Hambly. This book is basically, the best way to describe it, oh, it was very slow. I can't even tell you how many times I nearly nodded off and fell asleep while reading this book by the pool. She likes to, I give her credit for a lot of world building she puts in there with the different alien species and whatnot, but she tends to overload it in this book. She presents so many exotic names and of the Gamorreans and all these other species names that it's hard to remember what really happens in this novel. Basically, what happens is Luke, Han, and Leia are together. Han and Leia are approached by an old associate of Han's who was a smuggler, and actually was the one who tipped off Han about the bounty still on his head on Ord Mantell that Han mentioned in Empire Strikes Back. And they find out about how there was this planet where a bunch of Jedi children were at in the days of the Jedi Purge. And so they go to investigate this planet. And that really goes nowhere. What happens there is R2 nearly kills Leia because of how there's actually someone who controlled R2 with the Force, and he's the son of an old sort of rival of Leia, who it turns out was actually, this rival was a concubine of Palpatine, and her son, he's not the Emperor's son, no, but she basically presents it like, oh yes, it's possible, he can, and the kid controlled R2 with the Force somehow into almost killing Leia. But that subplot basically goes nowhere, and those two characters aren't seen again until in the new Jedi Order series. But the main thing of the book is Luke's plot. He finds out about this thing called the Eye of Palpatine, which was an old dreadnought ship, was basically a troop carrier. It's not a super weapon, but it was basically a dreadnought disguised as an asteroid, heavily armored and so forth. And years ago, during the Jedi Purge, a Jedi named Callista and her master boarded this vessel because it was going to go to this planet with all these Jedi children, and they were going to disable it. And Callista had to sacrifice herself and basically give up her physical body, and somehow her memory and spirit became not one with the Force, but it became part of the technology on the ship, and she basically prevents the ship, its AI, the Will it's called, from going to the planet for a very long time. And so when Luke boards this ship, which he was forced to, a dropship came and captured him and a bunch of other people. He gets on the ship and finds out all this information from Callista, talking through the ship itself, and they actually form a bond. And Luke falls in love with Callista. He falls in love with a dead woman inside of a computer, basically, which is strange. But Luke's not alone on the ship. He has 3PO with him, obviously, and he actually has 2 of his Jedi students who are introduced in this book and by the end are forgotten about because, well, they die. One of them is a guy who's actually, his mind and memories are inside a droid body, and the other student is basically that guy's girlfriend. And the problem with this book I had is it's very wordy, and Barbara Hambly, like I said, I give her credit for world building, but she could have condensed down so much of this material. Anytime we cut to Luke, it's always basically he's looking through the halls of the Eye of Palpatine. Oh, he goes into the mess hall, and there's trays and everywhere. Gamorreans and Jawas and Tusken Raiders are on the Eye of Palpatine, because what it does is it sends dropships to pick up people and essentially brainwash them and condition them into being Imperial stormtroopers. And this takes place after the Return of the Jedi. This takes place about, 10 years afterwards, I think, maybe 12. I can't remember the exact time and place. But there's a whole lot of staleness with Luke's subplot. He's limping through the ship because his leg has been wounded and is infected, and it's affecting his connection to the Force because he can't really use the medicine without being, basically being drunk. And Callista helps him. By the end, Luke and Callista destroy the Eye of Palpatine after, with the aid of his two students, the guy whose mind is in the droid body sacrifices himself, and his girlfriend basically no longer wants to live. She'd rather be with him in death. And because of this, Callista is able to transfer her mind into the body of Luke's student who didn't want to live anymore without her human droid boyfriend. So not only did Luke fall in love with the computer, that computer transferred his mind into one of his students. Some people think it's weird. I don't really think it's as weird because there's probably an age difference, but it was probably consenting adults. Although it is kind of weird that he was in love with a dead woman. So this book probably took me the longest to read through. It's okay. It's not bad per se, but it's kind of boring, and I had to think really hard to try and give you guys my half-baked plot summary of this book. So, moving on to the next one, it is Darksaber. This one was written by Kevin J. Anderson, and I've read, prior to this, he wrote the Jedi Academy trilogy, and he wrote, I can't remember exactly how many issues, but he did contribute to the Tales of the Jedi comic book from Dark Horse in the 90s. This one I actually loved, because he knows how to have a lot of things going on at the same time, but actually keep you interested in moving along. He keeps his paragraphs pretty short, and I saw some complaints on some forums that, he kind of just dumbed it down and so on and so forth. But you know what? I'd rather that he keep it more simplified, because Barbara, she just, like I said, just can't seem to keep on rambling. Her chapters were about 20 pages each, and that's not really a lot, but when you have such slow, wordy paragraphs, it feels forever. He keeps it crisp with 10-page paragraphs, sometimes less, sometimes more, but he knows how to go from one scene to another to keep you interested. I burned through this in about 3 days, I think. I had a lot of spare downtime at work waiting on other people, so I had to do something to keep me occupied, because can't be on your phone when there's no service. Basically what happens in this, Han and Luke go to Jabba's palace on Tatooine because they've been hearing rumors about people going in there, the Hutts in particular, and they find out that the Hutts were... Who was it? I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but one Hutt managed to get some Imperial codes from Jabba's vault, basically. Imperial codes are for a vault on Coruscant, where the New Republic is now established. And this Hutt goes there under the guise of basically wanting to have a discussion with the Republic so that, the Hutts can work with the Republic and be legitimate instead of just crime lords. And at the time he's doing that, he has these little alien pets of his break into the vault and steal the Death Star plans. That's right. The Hutts get their hands on the Death Star plans and super weapons, so you're thinking, oh god, not another one. But this is actually where it picks up. This Hutt actually gets the guy who designed the Death Star originally, which was not Galen Merrick like how it was in Rogue One. This was the guy who had... I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I'm rambling, I know, but he gets the guy who built the Death Star to have the plans and basically simplify the Death Star. So it's just the super laser and a couple engineer quarters and so forth for anyone on it. And has it built pretty fast out of material that they find in the asteroid field in Empire Strikes Back. So while that's happening, Han and Leia are trying, like after he leaves Coruscant, Leia goes to Nal Hutta to have further discussion with this guy because she does suspect something, and they basically find out, oh, he stole the Death Star plans, but they don't want to tip him off that, oh, we know you stole the Death Star plans. So while that's happening, Callista and Luke, she, from the last book, I forgot to mention this, at the end of Children of the Jedi, after she's gotten into her new body, she's lost her ability to use the Force for reasons never explained. So Luke is trying to get her to back in touch with the Force. However, nothing really happens when she tries. She tries training with him in his Jedi Praxium on Yavin 4. Then he decides to... It gets cheesy here. He decides to have basically a couples weekend on a comet that passes by a sun and the ice melts and it somehow becomes a resort. But they can only be there a time before it turns back into an icy cold comet. It was kind of weird. But then he takes her to a bunch of places so that they can train properly. He takes her to Dagobah. He takes her to even a Hoth. He's basically retracing his steps when he was learning the ways of the Force. By the end of the book, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. At the same time as those two plots are happening, the one Hutt, the crime lord, let me see if I can find his name, Durga, who's on the back of the book, thank you, Durga the Hutt. As he's building this new simplified Death Star, and Luke's trying to help Callista get back in touch with the Force, and Han and Leia are on Durga's trail, we find out that Admiral Dalla, who was the commanding officer during the... not commanding officer, but one of the antagonists from the Jedi Academy trilogy, she gets in touch with Grand Admiral Pelion because she wants to reunite the fractured remnants of the Empire. And Pelion, who was introduced originally in the Thrawn trilogy, he's in agreement with her, but she does not want to be leading the forces themselves. She's there to serve the Empire. And this book really develops her further. She only had so much time during the Jedi Academy trilogy, but they further develop her here, just basically say she's committed to the idea of the Empire. She doesn't want power and so on and so forth, so she doesn't really want to lead the forces. So with Pelion, they basically get all these warlords and all these other former Imperial officers that have given themselves fancy titles of High Admiral this and Warlord this and so on and so forth. They basically unite the masses. Their egos get big, and her and Pelion gas the room and kill them all and take their forces. And she is reluctant. She's basically, I didn't want it to come to this, but looks like I have no choice but to lead the forces. And her plan of attack is very smart, actually. She unites all these remnants of the Imperial fleet, and her plan is to basically do hit-and-run tactics on various targets in the New Republic. But her main target is Luke's Jedi Praxium to basically send a spiritual crush the rebellion spirit because they know what the Jedi stand for, which is very smart of her. And Pelion's in agreement with her, and he has a great deal of admiration and respect for her because he sees some similarities, not verbatim, but he sees a driving force in her that he saw in Thrawn. And I found that to be quite interesting. And who else? Oh, and another subplot. Two of Luke's students, Kip Duran, also introduced in the Jedi Academy trilogy, and Dorsk 81, who's from a clone planet, not Camino. They stumble across the plot of Pelion and Dala as they're trying to go into the core worlds just to get in touch with the people and so forth. Dorsk tries to reunite with his people first, but that goes nowhere. And then they have to go warn the New Republic. They both try to tell, who was it? They tell Wedge about it, Wedge Antilles, who's now a commanding officer of the part of the New Republic fleet. And in the end, what happens, everybody's paths cross to an extent. Admiral Dala's superstar destroyer, Nighthammer, is destroyed by Callista, who did it without the aid of the Force, I might add. And basically, Durga the Hutt, his little Death Star super laser, which he calls the Darksaber, was basically shoddily made from his little alien creatures. And it didn't work. Almost as if it was made in Mexico. Yeah, that wasn't very nice, Ace. So in the end, Callista and Luke part ways, and she basically says she has to get in touch with the Force on her own terms. That's going to be the only way how. And the Imperial Remnant has basically, they didn't achieve their goal of attacking every target. Luke's Jedi Academy is safe, but they've basically made a point that they're still out there and they're still a threat. And the only casualties there really are in this book is Dorsk 81 from Jedi Academy trilogy, and it's good. I like how we see him develop from like a dude who out of his society was just sort of a kind of an Orwellian dream of just do your job, conform and whatnot, don't step out of line, and to basically him being the first of his species to be a Jedi since God knows how long. He dies in the end, unfortunately, but his sacrifice is very bold. Him and the other Jedi students of the Academy, they channel their Force energy into him, and he uses the Force to repel a good chunk of the Imperial fleet that Pelion was in command of, so they're not even next to the planet, but they're still in the same solar system, which is... This goes to show how powerful the Jedi were in the old canon. And who else? Crix Maydeen, which, for those of you who don't know, remember the name, General Maydeen from Return of the Jedi, who basically is the one who came up with the plan to destroy the shield generator for the second Death Star and sends Han to do it. He gets killed when he finds out about the Darksaber and is caught. And actually, his death is a very noble death, and I only knew so much about him from Return of the Jedi and also from the Dark Forces video game because he was featured in there as part of one of your missions. And it was actually kind of sad that he died. But that's pretty much all I have to say. Like I said, Kevin J. Anderson, I thought he really improved upon the previous book because he kept it simple, and like I said, a lot of people said he kind of crams a lot of stuff in there, but you know what? I could remember a lot of stuff a lot better than with Children of the Jedi, even though I am paraphrasing. So, on to the final book. Final book, which I was able to read through a lot better. Planet of Twilight. Read through a lot better. I mean, I was able to read through it quicker. This probably took me 4 or 5 days to get through. This one is by Barbara Hambly again. But fortunately, after a few chapters in, it does pick up, so it doesn't suffer from a lot of the same problems that the first book had, Children of the Jedi. What happens in this is Princess Leia gets kidnapped while supposedly she was having a little diplomatic discussion with some guys who wanted to join the Republic, but the problem is their planet is basically divided in half, and the majority of the people don't want to join the Republic, and they're very isolationist, almost want to stay primitive. Basically the Amish in space. And Leia gets kidnapped by this guy because he wants to use her in basically a political plot of his. And Luke goes on the search to try to find Callista. And in the end, he does find her. Oh God, I'm still paraphrasing. I'm trying to remember the plot, and it is hard to remember this plot because Barbara Hambly again. So a lot happens with side plots of Han and Lando trying to find out about this and that. They give 3PO a little subplot because he gets separated from Leia and actually gets rescued by a space pirate who wants to basically sell him for scrap. And then 3PO manages to, with the aid of R2, to find their way back to Han and Lando after some time. So 3PO, like I said, he got kind of an interesting plot. Han, however, his plot basically, he doesn't really do anything of value. Leia connects with the Force a lot more in this. This is where she really starts to develop her Jedi powers, and actually goes toe to toe with a Jedi Hutt named Beldronian or Beldorian, who's quite old, and her and Luke to get together to help stop this plague from leaving this planet that they've landed on. And okay, I made it sound like the book's a lot better than Children of the Jedi, but only marginally. A downgrade from Darksaber, I will say. So basically, in the end, they stop the plague from leaving this planet, which was part of this one. Oh, I can't remember the character names. Obviously, you can tell Darksaber is able to remember character names. Barbara Hambly, she makes her names a little too exotic, and she introduces a lot of characters once again, where it's hard to remember other people's names. So, yeah, I'm going to put that book down, switch to my other hand now. The Callista Trilogy, let me get this book back up here, I forgot to mention the name of the character who is Callista. She returns in this book. We find out that she landed on the same planet that Leia was taken to, but Callista did it of her own free will because this planet is strong with the Force in a sort of an anomaly type of way, and thinks she can connect better there. However, she comes across this whole sort of factional war between this Hutt and this other lady, Talseda, who was a Jedi at one point, but not no more. In the end, Callista does not reunite with Luke and basically tells Leia to tell him that he has to leave her alone so she can connect with the Force on her own, but she'll always love him and so on and so forth. And reason that happened is because Mara Jade was more of a fan favorite at the time, so Barbara had to break up Callista and Luke. So overall, those books, as a trilogy, it's mediocre at best. It's okay. The one I'd say was the best was definitely Darksaber, just because it's fun and entertaining. Barbara Hambly, she has a lot of themes going on in her book, like with Children of the Jedi, she has a lot of things of technology, because with the Eye of Palpatine being run by an AI and Callista essentially becoming an AI, there's a whole lot of things with artificial intelligence. How do we relate to it? With the soldiers being basically brainwashed and conditioned to operating like machines, even though they're still flesh and blood. And even R2 gets taken over at one point in time. So she has a lot to say about technology in there. And Planet Twilight, it has basically some themes about business corruption, because there's this corporation called the Lonar, I believe it was pronounced, who want to basically strip mine the planet that they're on. And they've got to put them to a stop, because also those people don't know they're going to be unintentionally help spreading a plague. So it kind of has a lot of stuff going on there with environmental messages and, well, maybe not a lot, but there's some subtle things as well about sort of tampering with nature and so forth, because the plague in that novel is actually the byproduct of these little creatures called the Drox, I think they're pronounced. And one of them was actually genetically mutated and spliced by this one chef for Beldorian the Hutt, because Beldorian wanted a special type of Druk, and so the chef basically made one for him artificially with science. But this one gained sentience and then basically started this plague. So there's some things going on in there about basically messing with nature and so on and so forth in the name of interest for your bosses and profit and so on and so forth. So interesting ideas in her first and last book, but they just get lost in a wordy sea that goes on, worse than I am right now. Darksaber, you can shoot through that in a couple days because it's fun and entertaining. And I do like, in that book, I like how they handled Admiral Dala, and her and Pelion have become two of my favorite Imperial officers from the old expanded universe other than Thrawn. I'd probably put her just underneath Thrawn, but she's tied with Pelion. Pelion, I find him to be, what is it, the word I'm looking for? He's not savage. He has his own sort of code of honor along with Dala, but Dala's not afraid to be ruthless. So overall, like I said, the books are okay. Darksaber, I'd say, is the best of those three, but I really don't see myself rereading these books again. So part of the reason why I do this video is because I'm going to sell these at a bookstore today if I can. And I wanted to make the video before I did. So thanks for watching, guys. If you tolerated my incoherent rambling till the end, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps the channel, blah, blah, blah. No, it doesn't really, because I don't make money off YouTube, because their algorithm likes to make content creators take it up the tailpipe. So hopefully next time I can actually write a script and get a camera so I can do long takes as opposed to holding the camera holding my phone to record this. And yeah, I'm done. Peace out.